Do not dismiss what you are feeling today, because the atmosphere around you is changing in a way that refuses to stay invisible. Before this day is over, something rare will unfold above you, and the person standing on one side of that moment will not think, feel, or carry themselves the same way after crossing through it. This is not the kind of astrological influence that whispers gently in the background or offers a brief moment of inspiration before fading away. It arrives with enough intensity to awaken a longing that may have been buried so deeply you convinced yourself it no longer existed. Whether you pushed it aside months ago or abandoned it years ago, it is preparing to return with astonishing force. The surprising part is not that it comes back, but that you will finally stop resisting it. Instead of pushing it away again, you may discover that every part of you is ready to embrace it. On this very day, July 2nd, Venus forms an exact trine with Black Moon Lilith across the fire signs. That single alignment changes the emotional atmosphere surrounding attraction, relationships, confidence, and the way others instinctively respond to your presence. The energy created by this connection is unlike anything that has appeared so far this year. For 3 zodiac signs especially, an extraordinary magnetic quality begins to emerge, one that cannot be explained through logic or appearance alone. The people around them will notice something different immediately. They may struggle to describe it, yet they will continue feeling drawn closer without understanding why. There is a deeper reason this portal appears today instead of another day, and its timing is inseparable from what unfolded only hours beforehand. Before healing could begin, something hidden inside the collective had to be exposed. A wound that many people have been carrying beneath the surface was forced into the light, and the opening that follows is not separate from that experience. It exists because of it. If you have spent the last several days feeling unusually vulnerable, as though your private insecurities somehow became visible for everyone else to see, if you have sensed that your emotional defenses suddenly became thinner than usual, there is a precise astrological explanation behind that experience. Once you understand how these events connect, the emotional confusion you have carried throughout this week begins to organize itself into a pattern that finally makes sense. Before exploring that connection, however, it is important to understand what is actually opening today. Many people will overlook this moment completely. They will hear the word portal, assume it is another dramatic expression repeated throughout astrology, and continue scrolling without another thought. They will never realize that this particular alignment represents something genuinely uncommon until it has already passed. By then, the opportunity will already be behind them. The sky is arranging itself into a configuration that appears only rarely, and that rarity is exactly what gives this day its extraordinary influence. It is important to recognize that this is about much more than Venus simply traveling through Leo or Black Moon Lilith expressing itself through Sagittarius. The true significance comes from the exact geometry formed between them. A trine creates a natural current of cooperation rather than conflict. Venus represents everything within you that longs for affection, appreciation, beauty, harmony, and the experience of being valued. Black Moon Lilith symbolizes the opposite side of your emotional landscape, the qualities that have been criticized, rejected, labeled, excessive, misunderstood, or considered too powerful for other people to accept comfortably. Venus reaches toward love with an open heart. Lilith refuses to sacrifice authenticity simply to receive approval. Most of the time, these two parts of your inner world compete against one another. You desire acceptance while simultaneously refusing to abandon your truth. You hope to be chosen, yet you resist becoming smaller simply to fit someone else's expectations. Living between those opposing desires creates a quiet exhaustion that many people carry every single day without recognizing its source. There is a constant negotiation between presenting the version of yourself that feels socially acceptable and revealing the person you genuinely are underneath every mask. Today, however, at 3:30 during the night, that internal conflict enters an unusual period of harmony. The trine dissolves the resistance between these forces, allowing them to work together instead of pulling against one another. Suddenly, the traits you once believed were too intense, too unconventional, or too difficult for others to appreciate become the very qualities that attract attention. The aspects of your personality you have carefully hidden within romantic relationships, friendships, professional environments, and everyday interactions begin transforming into your greatest source of personal magnetism. What once felt like something to conceal becomes impossible for others to ignore. Because this alignment unfolds through the fire signs of Leo and Sagittarius, its influence does not creep forward quietly. Fire announces itself immediately. It acts openly, confidently, and without hesitation. The shift is unlikely to remain buried beneath the surface. Instead, it becomes visible, unmistakable, and deeply physical. You may notice the difference in your posture, your voice, your confidence, or the way your body responds before your mind fully understands what has changed. Other people may notice it the moment you enter a room, sensing an unfamiliar presence, even if they cannot explain what they are responding to. This brings us back to the emotional heaviness many people have experienced throughout this week. If recent days have left you questioning your value, feeling unusually exposed, wrestling with self-doubt, or standing before the mirror wondering why you suddenly felt disconnected from yourself, those emotions were not meaningless coincidences. They were not simply the result of a difficult week or random insecurity. Only hours before the Venus and Black Moon-Lilith Portal reached exact alignment, Jupiter formed a powerful square with Chiron. Jupiter, the planet associated with expansion, belief, and growth, came into direct tension with Chiron, the celestial body connected to your oldest and most sensitive emotional wound. This exact square occurred across Aries and Leo, signs closely connected with identity, personal visibility, confidence, and the fundamental belief that you deserve to occupy space exactly as you are. The effect of that square was unmistakable. It removed every layer of protection covering the fears you normally keep hidden. It demanded that you face the insecurities surrounding visibility and self-worth. Every quiet doubt about whether you are remarkable enough, lovable enough, deserving enough, or worthy of recognition was pulled into the open, where it could no longer remain ignored. At this very moment, countless people are still sitting inside the emotional aftermath of that opening. They cannot quite explain why their confidence suddenly feels fragile, why old doubts have returned, or why they have begun questioning themselves in ways they thought they had already outgrown. They feel exposed without knowing the reason. They feel smaller than they did only days ago. Yet what appears to be emotional damage is actually serving a deliberate purpose. That wound was never meant to remain open. It was created because something extraordinary was scheduled to follow it. The exact trine between Venus and Black Moon Lilith arriving today functions as the energetic response to the insecurity awakened by the recent Jupiter and Chiron square. It does far more than simply soothe emotional pain. It changes the nature of that pain itself. The vulnerability that seemed overwhelming only hours ago begins transforming into something remarkably powerful. What once felt like weakness gradually reveals itself as the source of undeniable personal magnetism. Looking back, you may eventually realize that every uncomfortable feeling you experienced throughout this week was preparing you for this precise moment. The discomfort was not the destination. It was the doorway. Now the opportunity arrives, but it can only fulfill its purpose if you recognize what is unfolding and choose to move with its current instead of resisting it. There is another part of this story that deserves your complete attention, because hidden beneath everything happening today is a desire that has refused to disappear. You already know which one it is. It is the longing that once felt so overwhelming. You convinced yourself it would be safer to let it go. It is the dream you slowly talked yourself out of believing. It is the person whose presence affected you so deeply that continuing to want them seemed almost too risky to bear. It is also the version of yourself you briefly encountered during a moment of complete honesty before quickly burying it beneath responsibility, fear, or the expectations of everyone around you. None of those desires truly vanished. They simply waited beneath the surface, and now this alignment calls them back with even greater intensity than before. The psychological process behind this transit is surprisingly clear once you recognize it. The emotion that begins dissolving is shame. More specifically, it is the shame connected to wanting what your heart genuinely wants. Whether your longing involves a particular relationship, an ambitious professional leap, a completely different way of living, or a connection that challenges everything you were taught to accept, the emotional weight attached to those desires begins losing its power. As that burden fades, something remarkable unfolds inside you. You no longer feel obligated to apologize for your dreams. You stop explaining every decision in hopes that someone else will approve. You gradually release the exhausting performance of becoming a smaller, safer version of yourself simply to protect the comfort of others. The instant that performance ends, your presence changes completely. Without forcing anything, you become impossible to overlook. This is one of the deepest truths revealed through the Venus and Black Moon Lilith trine. Human beings are not captivated by flawless appearances. They never truly were. What draws people in is authenticity that carries no hesitation. They respond to someone whose life radiates honesty instead of performance. They notice the person who no longer hides behind carefully rehearsed versions of themselves. There is an unmistakable quality surrounding someone who seems to have discovered a profound truth within their own identity, while everyone else is still searching for permission to do the same. That is the gift hidden inside today's portal. It does not create a different personality. It does not magically replace who you are with someone new. Instead, it removes the layers that have been covering the person who has always existed underneath. Once those layers begin falling away, what remains possesses a quiet intensity that cannot be manufactured. That authentic version of yourself carries a level of presence that leaves a lasting impression long after you have left the room. The story does not end with today's realization, because this alignment is only the beginning of a much larger sequence already moving into place. The portal opening on July 2nd stands as the spark, but another astrological event arrives only 2 days later to transform that internal awakening into external action. On July 4th, Mars forms a conjunction with Uranus in Gemini. Mars represents decisive movement, fearless action, separation from what no longer belongs, and the willingness to move before certainty arrives. Uranus represents disruption, revolution, unpredictability, and the force that destroys patterns which have remained stagnant for too long. When these two bodies unite, change rarely unfolds gradually. It erupts with astonishing speed. Relationships can reach turning points without warning. Career paths may suddenly shift direction. A single conversation lasting less than 5 minutes can permanently alter the future of a partnership. Decisions that felt impossible at the beginning of the week suddenly become completely obvious before the week has ended. People finally gather the courage to leave environments they believed they would tolerate forever. Messages that have existed only inside someone's mind for months are finally sent. Long-delayed choices suddenly become unavoidable actions. This is exactly why today's Venus and Black Moon Lilith Portal carries such enormous significance. Whatever desire returns to your awareness on July 2nd, whatever truth you finally acknowledge, whatever hidden version of yourself begins breathing again, the Mars and Uranus conjunction on July 4th becomes the force that carries those inner realizations into tangible reality. The portal awakens emotional clarity. Mars and Uranus translate that clarity into visible action within the physical world. There is, however, another possibility that deserves serious consideration. If you experience today's awakening and immediately suppress it, if fear convinces you to bury those returning desires all over again, then the energy arriving on July 4th expresses itself very differently. Instead of becoming the one directing change, change begins directing you. Instead of making conscious decisions from a place of certainty, unexpected events begin making those decisions on your behalf. Rather than stepping forward with confidence, you may feel as though circumstances suddenly remove every familiar foundation beneath your feet. The difference between liberation and disruption is surprisingly small. It rests upon a single decision. Will you honor the truth this portal reveals, or will you convince yourself to ignore what you have already recognized? Every zodiac sign will experience the influence of this extraordinary portal in one way or another. Every zodiac sign will feel the influence of this portal in some form, because every person carries at least one desire that has been hidden beneath fear, guilt, or self-judgment. Every sign will experience some layer of emotional release as shame begins to loosen its hold. Yet for 3 particular signs, the experience reaches far beyond an internal realization. Their transformation becomes something other people can immediately sense. Before they even recognize the shift themselves, those around them begin responding differently. Their energy changes first, and the world reacts second. Leo stands at one of the strongest points of this extraordinary fire trine, making this an unmistakable moment of personal activation. Venus is traveling through your sign, while Black Moon Lilith forms an exact trine from your 5th house, the area connected with romance, creative expression, pleasure, and the courage to reveal your authentic self. Every layer of this alignment directs attention toward your identity, your physical presence, the way you occupy space, and the unique energy only you can bring into a room. Beneath the confidence that people so often associate with Leo lives a quieter question that rarely reaches the surface. Many never realize how often you wonder whether love depends upon your ability to inspire, entertain, support, or impress everyone around you. Somewhere inside exists the fear that if the performance ever stopped, if you simply showed up without dazzling anyone, the affection you receive might disappear with it. The Venus and Black Moon Lilith Portal answers that fear in a way that permanently changes your relationship with yourself. During July 2nd, something inside you reaches a decisive turning point. The need to perform suddenly loses its authority, not because exhaustion finally catches up with you, but because you recognize that your worth never depended upon the performance in the first place. You stop carefully managing every impression. You stop adjusting your personality to match the expectations of the people standing in front of you. You stop lowering your voice, softening your opinions, or reducing your brilliance simply to make someone else feel more comfortable. As soon as those habits begin falling away, an unexpected transformation becomes visible. Without trying harder, you become more captivating. Without chasing attention, attention naturally follows you. People are no longer responding to an image you carefully created. They're responding to something genuine, something powerful that cannot be imitated. Around this period, you may feel an unexpected urge to change something about your appearance, choosing something bolder, more expressive, and more reflective of who you truly are, instead of who you believed others expected you to become. Allow yourself to trust that instinct. It is one expression of this portal moving through your life. You are not constructing a different identity. You are finally allowing the identity that has always existed beneath expectation to become visible. That version of you no longer waits for approval or applause. It naturally commands attention without needing to ask for it. Sagittarius, your experience unfolds through an entirely different but equally profound path. Black Moon Lilith has remained in your sign since late 2025, steadily uncovering every desire, dream, and truth you buried because someone convinced you it was unrealistic excessive, unconventional, or impossible. Throughout this journey, she has exposed every compromise that slowly separated you from your authentic spirit. Today, Venus forms an exact trine to that point from your ninth house, the realm associated with philosophy, higher understanding, distant horizons, truth, exploration, and everything that reminds your soul how expansive life can become. Under this alignment, one emotional burden begins disappearing almost immediately. The shame attached to being considered too much starts dissolving completely. The guilt surrounding your constant need for freedom, movement, discovery, and expansion gradually loses every ounce of authority it once held over you. The belief that your restless spirit represented a flaw is revealed for what it truly was. It was never an objective truth. It was learned conditioning. This portal moves through that conditioning with extraordinary intensity, removing old limitations as effortlessly as flames consume dry paper. During this window, your presence becomes extraordinarily attractive in ways that cannot be explained through ordinary logic. People are drawn towards someone who no longer seeks validation from them. Your independence becomes irresistible precisely because it is genuine. Rather than chasing connection, you become so deeply committed to your own vision, your own journey, and your own truth that others naturally feel compelled to walk beside you. The honesty that previously unsettled polite conversations suddenly feels refreshing to everyone who hears it. The freedom that once intimidated romantic partners begins inspiring admiration instead of fear. Every quality that once seemed overwhelming to the wrong people transforms into exactly what the right people have been searching for all along. Pay close attention to those who enter your life during this transit. They are not arriving to limit your independence or reduce your fire. They recognize it, appreciate it, and possess the strength to stand beside it rather than attempting to control it. Aries completes this powerful fire triangle, and although neither Venus nor Black Moon Lilith currently occupies your sign, their exact trine channels tremendous energy into both your fifth house of passion and your ninth house of expansion. These two areas of life become intensely activated, filling you with a growing sense that movement can no longer be postponed. For you, the greatest transformation centers around hesitation itself. The fear of rejection that has quietly influenced your choices begins disappearing altogether. It does not simply weaken, it seems to switch off entirely. Conversations you have delayed, opportunities you have repeatedly analyzed, and people you have wanted to approach all begin feeling remarkably different. Endless preparation gives way to decisive action. The period of constant calculation reaches its natural conclusion. At the same time, your ruling planet, Mars, continues squaring the lunar nodes while moving toward its conjunction with Uranus on July 4th. Together, these influences create an atmosphere overflowing with instinctive courage, fearless initiative, and powerful momentum. The Venus and Black Moon Lilith Portal adds an essential quality to that momentum. Instead of allowing boldness to appear forceful or confrontational, it transforms that courage into something naturally attractive. Your willingness to act becomes inspiring rather than intimidating, allowing your confidence to draw people closer instead of pushing them away. Throughout this extraordinary window, Aries radiates an attraction that comes from something far more powerful than appearance or carefully crafted charm. It is born from fearless honesty. While so many people spend their time pretending not to care, protecting themselves behind emotional distance, keeping every possibility open, sending uncertain messages and waiting 3 days before replying because they believe hesitation creates value, Aries instinctively moves in the opposite direction. You recognize what your heart wants and move toward it without disguising your intentions. There is no elaborate strategy, no emotional performance, no carefully calculated safety net. That complete willingness to pursue something openly awakens a deeply instinctive response in the people around you. It reaches beyond logic and touches something ancient inside the human experience. Others recognize a level of certainty they rarely encounter anymore. They witness someone acting without apology, without unnecessary hesitation, and without allowing fear to negotiate every decision. That confidence carries tremendous power because it reminds people of a forgotten way of living. Before their minds have time to evaluate what they are experiencing, they are already responding emotionally. Your certainty becomes contagious. You are no longer attempting to persuade anyone to notice you. Instead, your unwavering authenticity becomes so compelling that people naturally forget they ever believed they had countless alternatives. This remarkable portal reaches exact activation on July 2nd, yet believing its influence ends, there would overlook the larger pattern unfolding across the sky. Whatever awakens inside you during this transit immediately enters a series of experiences designed to reveal whether that returning desire possesses genuine depth or whether it exists only as temporary excitement. By July 9th, Venus forms a challenging aspect with Saturn, the planet associated with structure, responsibility, limitation, reality, and undeniable truth. At that point, every liberating feeling awakened during the Venus and Black Moon Lilith trine encounters a direct question. Can this desire continue existing once everyday reality replaces emotional intensity? Can it survive after the excitement settles and practical responsibilities demand real commitment? Shortly afterward, Venus enters Virgo, shifting the collective atmosphere away from passionate fire and into grounded earth. The dramatic inspiration characterizing the opening days of July gradually gives way to ordinary routines, practical choices, and the quiet discipline required to build something lasting. Many people misunderstand this transition. They assume the universe is taking away what it previously encouraged. In reality, something very different is happening. The universe is not rejecting your desire. It is examining its foundation. It is asking whether the longing that resurfaced during the portal originated from your deepest authentic truth or merely from temporary emotion and personal ego. If the desire awakened through Black Moon Lilith emerged from the most honest place within your spirit, it remains steady. It survives Saturn's challenge. It adapts beautifully to Virgo's practical influence. It transforms from inspiration into lived reality. If, however, the desire existed only because of the emotional intensity surrounding the moment, without genuine roots beneath it, the weeks ahead gradually reveal its instability until it naturally falls away. Because of that, pay close attention to everything rising within you today. Not every forgotten longing deserves a permanent place in your future. The desires worth protecting are the ones that make you feel more deeply connected to your authentic self rather than pulling you further away from it. They carry a quiet sense of recognition that reaches beyond excitement. They feel familiar, almost as though your soul remembers them, even when your mind had forgotten. Those are the desires the universe is returning to your hands, gently reminding you that they were abandoned long before their time had truly come. When you step back and observe the entire first week of July, instead of focusing upon individual events, an extraordinary pattern begins revealing itself. This is not simply a collection of unrelated astrological transits appearing one after another. It is a carefully connected sequence in which every alignment prepares the way for the next. The Jupiter and Chiron square exposes your deepest emotional wound by bringing hidden insecurities into full awareness. The exact trine between Venus and Black Moon Lilith answers that vulnerability by awakening profound self-acceptance and reconnecting you with the parts of yourself you once believed had to remain hidden. The conjunction between Mars and Uranus on July 4th transforms inner realization into decisive external action, breaking apart whatever can no longer support your future. Then the Sun forms a square with Saturn on July 6th, requiring everything that remains to be rebuilt with maturity, responsibility, and genuine integrity. Together, These alignments create a complete process of destruction followed by reconstruction, fundamentally changing the way you experience desire, relationships, personal identity, and every hidden aspect of yourself that has remained locked away for far too long. Many people will move through this week believing their lives have suddenly become chaotic. They will experience unpredictable emotions, unexpected confrontations, surprising relationship shifts, and circumstances that appear to change without warning. From their perspective, everything may seem to be falling apart. Yet you now have the opportunity to recognize something they cannot yet see. Beneath every unexpected event exists a carefully designed structure. Beneath every emotional disruption lies a meaningful pattern guiding you toward transformation. What appears random from the surface follows a blueprint with remarkable precision, and every step within that blueprint leads toward a version of yourself that feels significantly more authentic than the one you have been carrying until now. The Venus and Black Moon Lilith Portal never asks you to become someone different. It asks something far simpler and far more difficult. It asks you to stop pretending to be someone you were never meant to become. It invites you to face the desire you have spent so much energy avoiding and recognize that it was never leading you away from your purpose. It has quietly been pointing toward it all along. The longing you feared was never your obstacle. It has always been your direction. The moment you finally stop resisting it, the moment every unnecessary mask falls away, and the honest, unfiltered, unapologetic version of yourself is finally allowed to exist without fear, everything around you begins responding differently. Your presence changes. The way people look at you changes. Conversations begin finding you. Unexpected opportunities appear. Someone across the room notices you without understanding why. An old relationship may suddenly return to your awareness. New possibilities arrive where only silence existed before. These experiences do not happen simply because the stars force them into existence. They happen because you have become capable of recognizing, accepting, and receiving what has been waiting for you all along. Today, the portal opens. What follows depends entirely upon the choices you make after stepping through it. Whatever longing you have hidden from the world, whatever dream you have quietly admitted only to yourself before immediately trying to forget it, now returns with greater strength than before. All that remains is one final question. When it arrives, will you greet it with the courage it has been waiting to find within you? Thank you for spending this time here and sharing this journey. If this message resonated with you and you would like to continue exploring future astrological insights together, consider subscribing to the channel. Your support truly makes a difference. I would also love to hear your thoughts and personal experiences in the comments. Until our next conversation, take good care of yourself, and I look forward to seeing you again very soon.